Is it happening?
It's happening. It
It
says the
says
podcast is live.
it says you are live exclamation point. So that must mean that we are indeed live. All
Yes.
right. Well, let's do it then. Welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio. I am your host, and tonight I have a very special guest for you there. And we're going to talk about a very cool Transformers fan project in the form of fan comics. Oh, I have something else going on. Oh no, I have I have YouTube going in the background. So I was getting feedback loop in my headphones.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
You know, like that thing when you hear yourself like 10 seconds later.
Oh my God, that's terrible. I hate
That is the worst. So I guess I've already created my first edit point. But no, we're talking about a terrific Transformers fan comics, Song of Jupiter, and Descent into Madness. And joining me right now on the Mike Seibert Radio live stream is none other than James Hooks. Hooks himself. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Incidentally, it's Descent into Chaos, but I love Descent into Madness. I kind of wish we changed the title to that because things get a bit dim. DIM.
It really is. I can't believe I read that wrong. I literally have it right here in front of me.
It's okay. It's okay. It was a bit mad to invest in a project like this, and I think Madness is very much apropos for everything that we created. So.
Quite so. Well, a little bit of background. You know, in Transformers fandom, I don't know if you've experienced this because you've been part of the Transformers online fandom since before there was a Transformers online fandom. There's kind of, and my buddy Anthony Bricali, TFU.info. If you're playing the Mike Seibert Radio drinking game, I've already mentioned Ant, so you can go ahead and take a drink. But like he bristles a little bit when I talk about the dichotomy between the old guard of online fandom and kind of like a new guard. I've been participating in the fandom for maybe 5 years tops, doing podcasts and things like that. But there's a group of folks like yourself and Ant and several others that goes back to the Usenet days to where I don't even know what Usenet is. So anytime when Ant talks about it on Transformers University, there's a bit of not just a certain amount of abstractness that comes with it, but also a depth of history that predates some of us newer Transformers content creators. So I
age and literally by everything, right? Yeah, it's interesting because Usenet was the internet before there was the internet. To your point, it was all text, and so you had a bunch of college kids and high school kids and younger than high school kids like me who just happened to bribe their parents into like letting us use a separate dial-up line to get onto the internet and talk to strangers. And I promise they weren't like trying to like steal us or kidnap us or anything. It was just all about really connecting around these topics that we were obsessed about, right? And the fact that, and I think it was kind of mad, a bit of madness around, 30 years ago, you would call in to this forum of people that you only knew by name, email address. You didn't have a picture, and you just had to trust them that they were the people on the other side that they said they were. And you're spending hours upon hours in conversation and debate at a time when you can, I would say, disagree without being disagreeable, except for the occasional flame war. And it was great. It was great. There was this innocence to it that, even for folks that, my, 13, 14-year-old self did not get along with, I honestly wouldn't have got along with my 13, 14-year-old self either. And I think about those times as just really special in my life, and am grateful to have been a part of it.
Absolutely. So before we get into the comics, because there's going to be a lot of material to talk about there. First, I want to put on Front Street because I already see my buddy Nick is following us on YouTube and commenting. And if you have questions for us and for Hooks, please feel free and jump in the comments and ask your questions. These are independent comics,
Yes.
not affiliated with IDW, not affiliated with whatever the still to be announced new license holder, which actually, I was going to go through the tell us about yourself and the fandom and stuff like that, but as a comics creator in this space, how odd is it that the new license holder hasn't been announced yet? I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd, and maybe it's not so odd. I think that when Dreamwave lost the license back in 2004 because they were crooks,
Yep.
I think IDW, like, it was announced like 6 months later. I don't think there was this huge time difference between Dreamwave doing what it did and then IDW being announced as a license holder. The difference was the internet moved a lot slower back then, right? Everything was based on, message boards and news releases, and it wasn't this like hyper, like I have to have the information now. And so, it hasn't even been 2 months since IDW has officially no longer been the license holder. And I can see a world where there's certain legal language around, like, you can't announce the new license holder until a period of time after the original license has expired. That said, I felt like the comics that honestly took a few years to put together kind of landed at the perfect time, because it was before IDW, announced that they lost the license, and it was actually during the early days of COVID that we first imagined this work. So, it's interesting how the passage of time can sort of betray this sense of urgency and quickness, when oftentimes things aren't as quick as we remember them to be.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think as citizens of the internet in this online space, we've grown impatient.
Mhm.
I had forgotten that it was that long in between Dreamwave and the IDW thing, and that was something where it came from like a collapse of a crooked company,
Yeah.
to have the pieces picked up by then a small but no less legitimate
Mhm.
company. Now it's a very different landscape where Hasbro has just chosen to find a different licensee. So Hasbro's in the driver's seat for probably for the first time in a while,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting and liberating in a certain way for them. So like I buried the lead a little bit and got a little too ahead of myself. For every live stream, every podcast is somebody's first podcast. There are a lot of folks in my audience that are meeting you for the first time. Let's talk about kind of your Transformers fandom a little bit. What were some of kind of your first experiences with Transformers, and why is it stuck with you now into late adulthood?
Wow. So my first experiences were, so I was born in the early 80s, like many of the original Transformers fans. Um, and my first experience was, I think even before I saw an episode of the cartoon, was my sister, my sister is about 11 years older than me. She is a huge comics geek. I mean, she was reading like Claremont X-Men and Claremont Excalibur, and she's a huge Dungeons and Dragons player. And I remember her handing me Transformers #3 with Spider-Man and with Gears in it. And there was something about, from my recollection, again, we're talking about close to 40 years now, memory, where there was this like, I've not seen anything like this before, and you have like these robots, and robots are cool, and you have Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's cool. And then I think I skipped issue 4, and then I got issue 5, and then issue 6 through 8, and then concurrently found out about the cartoon. And sometime around there, I got Shockwave, and then it just became this like obsession right? Where I just had to have more and more and learn more about these space robots and learn more about and enjoy the adventures that they were going on. And I think the thing that really sold me was being a kid and watching the original Transformers movie. Primarily because, you know, other movies and other forms of entertainment did not cover the themes that the original movie did. There was death, a lot of violence.
Yeah.
There was tragedy. There was a clear hero's arc. There was bright colors, and there was rock and roll, and there was just this sense of adventure that, you know, for a child, you're just like, this is incredible and scary, and I am feeling things that I never knew I could feel based on the piece of media. Now, whether it was appropriate or not for some of the imagery in that film, as well as some of the language, that's a debate for another day. But
Right.
there is something to be said about like just the type of story at that time in life that makes you really curious and wanting to know more, and also just raising the stakes to the point of like at any moment, the characters that I am falling in love with, the characters that I am following, the characters I'm scared of, the characters I'm rooting against, at any time they could be taken completely off the board.
Yeah.
And there's some excitement to that. And you know, from there, you know, like of course going into the comics, and then, you know, all the Simon Furman stuff, you know, with the original G1 series, and seeing the arc from the Matrix Quest all the way to the Unicron War. And then suddenly, like speaking of death, suddenly the series ended suddenly at issue 80. And you're like, is this it? Like, wait a minute, there's no more Transformers. And there's this lull, like while there are still toys being made, I think for those of us who were born at a certain age and enjoying Transformers at a certain time, we start creating gaps in between like the different stories that were told on the back of boxes and the commercials that we saw. And I think that's sort of where the beginnings of fan fiction began, right? It's what, like, how did you know, the Autobots get from being on Golden Age, a renewed Golden Age Cybertron, to becoming Power Masters, and where the Pretenders come from, and what were the gaps there? And you know, is there stuff out there? And you're hearing rumors, especially when you're in the early stages of the internet, where getting one picture takes like 6 hours to download, and you're hearing, oh, there's stuff in Japan, and there's this whole other series going on, and I can't watch that. Like, what is this, right? And then the G2 comics come, and then, you know, you see Optimus Prime with bullets in his head, and you're reading the series, and again, it's taking that darkness that the original movie started with and turning it up while also creating an actual good story on top of it.
Yeah.
And suddenly, and there's this gap between 93 and 96 when, you know, and I was like, my first time on the internet was Prodigy. And that's where I met my friend Phil and, you know, a few other folks, Darcy, who, you know, like people who were also fans of Transformers. It was a really small club. And then it went from there to Usenet. And suddenly I'm meeting all these people. And keep in mind, I was like 12 years old at the time. So, and I'm meeting all these folks who like are also into Transformers, and there's nothing to fill the gaps. And it's like, well, they're writing stories, really good stories. Why can't I do the same? And so I remember writing a story called Transformers Wars. And that was like my first foray into any sort of like content creation, where I killed a lot of our mutual friends like Ant and others. But, you know, it was one of those things where I felt like I had this opportunity because, excuse me, there's no other series that's coming out that's covering what's happening with the Transformers. So why not like take a stab at, you know, filling the gaps in ourselves? And you know, between like stuff that like my friend Rob Powers was writing, or M. Cypher, or Bobby Carruthers, or just so many people were just creating great pieces of art. And you know, and it made me like want to write, you know, even better. And then along came Beast Wars, and like nothing could ever be better than that. So I kind of stopped writing at that point. So yeah, no, my history in Transformers was from the very beginnings, and it is something that, given a lot of the depth and breadth of the genre and the characters, and and some of the gaps that we were filling as kids that were then tapping into our own imaginations to really create entire universes of wonder and imagination. And you could tell truly human stories with titans of metal.
Mhm.
I don't think you could get anything. You can't tap into magic like that in any other franchise.
Absolutely. Well, and the cool thing about Transformers also is that it does have all of these different entry points for different people of different ages and different eras, and I love that. It's like, there was a time when I was younger and a little more precious about the things that I loved, that I kind of didn't want to share them or have them be reinterpreted. Like I remember, and it is just so ridiculous now, reflecting back, but like I used to have a real attitude problem about name reuse.
Mm,
Like, like Beast Wars Silver Bowl. I'm like, that's not Silver Bowl. Get the hell out of here with that. That's not Inferno. Get the hell
mm,
out of here with that. Dinobot, like singular, and that's his name. It's just, I was a dumb teen, and I didn't understand the necessity for name reuse for like copyright purposes and stuff like that. And that, even that kind of followed me through even to the live action movies,
mm.
which seems ridiculous now, even as late, quote unquote, as 2007. I'm getting bent ass shape about name reuse, and it's just such a dumb thing to get fixated on. But
But we all
the
have a thing, though, right? I mean, there's certain things I think that we hold true to ourselves. And there was a time I used to get bent out of shape about people getting bent out of shape about name uses, right? And I think there's this sense of just letting people enjoy what they like, and if they don't like it, that's okay. It's okay to like and dislike, certain things. I used to, get upset when people actually enjoyed Energon, the series, not the because it doesn't exist.
do you drink it? Do you eat it? Is it blood? Is
There
it
was a time in
water?
2020, I think people were probably like thinking like I could drink Energon, but that's besides the point. But the thing is, like, we all hold things very close and precious to us.
Yeah.
Certain beliefs, certain truths that I think help inform our view of the world, or inform how we approach certain pieces of entertainment. And I think it's just about how far you take that fanaticism, where as long as you know that that is your belief and the things that are sort of like the hills you'll die on, but you're not going to kick someone else off a different hill and kill them because they might have a different belief than you. And I think that's fine. I mean, the franchise has definitely been one of consistent name reuse, and I think I would even argue that since the very beginning, when you had, Shockwave, the loyal Megatron servant, and also Shockwave, the Azurber, right? You had,
Yeah.
you had Blaster, the heroic, potential leader of the Autobots, and then Blaster, who's just like wants to listen to music and chill all day.
Yeah.
And those aren't considered reuses, but the fact is that they were completely, wholly inconsistent characters from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what that said was, it's okay if there's inconsistency within different universes, even if they carry the same name, even if they have a similar look. Because from the very beginning, there was inconsistencies. And is it the Ark? Is it Auntie? Is it just the Autobot shuttle? Are they Mount St. Hilary or Mount St. Helens? Did Optimus Prime die because of a video game in 1986, or was he killed by battles, scars that he was inflicted on by Megatron in 2005? And at least for me, what that held true was the sense of anything was possible, but as long as there's internal consistency within a certain continuity or universe, we'll roll with it.
The thing that's fascinating to me also is the increasing complexities of the stories of the Transformers. Like, we covered it already, like with regards to the movie into season 3, and the creators of the shows somehow acknowledged the passage of time. Like, you know, it was, I mean, we were there, so the perspective is a little different, but like basically it was a brand that kind of grew up with us. So, you know, maybe the movie was maybe a little intense for folks that were 7,
Mhm.
but by the time you get to season 3 when you're 8 or 9, you know, you've grown with you know, you're ready for the characters from 1984 to grow and develop and go through life. There's a shocking amount of depth and
Mhm.
life lessons in those first couple years that I don't know if you necessarily see now in contemporary Transformers. Like I recently did a huge live stream panel discussion about Transformers Earthspark.
Mm.
And it's a terrific show, and
Mm.
it's a great entry point, and it's perfect to enjoy your family. Just like, you know, once they put that in the ad copy, you know, stream with your family, I'm like, thumbs up, you
Yeah.
nailed it.
Yeah.
But there's also like amount of foundation that I think, depending upon how long the show goes, that there is opportunity to build on that foundation and to grow with the audience
Mhm.
in a way that I might not have seen for a while. It's just it's fascinating how a brand can kind of grow with you. I resonate with the lessons and themes and characters and situations in Transformers the movie even more so as an adult than I did as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
incredible.
think you start to recognize a bit of the adult you in that show or in that
Mhm.
movie in a way that, you know, when you're a kid, it's like you're bright eyed and you're scared and you're excited. But then you're like, hey, like, oh shit, I'm getting wrinkles like Cup did. So now, you know, I have
Yeah, yeah.
kids and I am telling stories to the youngins. And I don't have kids myself, but I find myself, you know, in the work that I do, oftentimes starting with stories like when I was, you know, certain age or when I was this is what happened. And it's like, you know, Cup, I get you. I get you. I understand you.
Yeah.
And, you know, Hot Rod, Turbo Revan Young Pug, he is definitely somebody who you resonate a little bit less with. Like you see his hero's arc and you see his journey. But you get why Cup was upset with him because sometimes when I see interns coming into the office, it's like, oh, you Turbo Revan, you know, TikToking young punks, you know, get
Yeah.
out the micro kitchen. I need to make my coffee because I have a bunch of meetings I have to get to. So there's certain residents within, you know, the different characters and the archetypes that the movies and the series have created that I think allows us to just look at things with new eyes and a fresh view on things.
Absolutely. So that being said, as we were chatting about Transformers the movie, let's kind of get into the discussion a little bit about Descent into Chaos, because
Madness.
yeah, not madness. Well, it is a descent into madness, but in this
Yeah.
case, we're gonna descent into chaos. I remember around Thanksgiving time,
Hmm.
our mutual friend Ant DMs me, and he just like, I'm just gonna slip this under your door, relevant to your interests,
Hmm.
no context.
Yeah.
And I immediately see the graphic. I think there was there a version of the cover? No, I'm thinking of like the internal cover. Anyway, you had the Transformers the movie call out on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I mean, because that's catnip for me. It's like I over these last couple years, my like Studio Series 86 has kind of been my in back into mainline collecting.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm buying all them Super 7 figures, and you know,
Hmm.
any of that stuff that has that specific call out on it, the classic orange magenta gradient on there,
Hmm.
because we never had toys with that specific branding on there.
Yeah.
So it became strangely important to me. It's like, no, they like I remember when Hasbro Pulse put out like the Quintesson Pit of Judgment, and
Hmm.
it says like inspired by the Transformers the movie, and it just like it affected me in a weird odd way that I never anticipated, because I'm like, oh my God, they made that for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
what an absurd feeling as like me as like a singular person to think it was made specifically for me. But that's how I felt. And then like, even with like the Studio Series 86 line, and, you know, just opening it up and seeing a mainline Transformer toy. I think, what, that's starting 2020, 2021. I don't remember, but like getting them out of the box, it was like there was a still a disbelief that it's like, I'm getting Transformers the movie branded
Yeah.
toys. I never thought this was going to happen. And
Do you remember
uh,
when even those characters were in like impossible, right? To make, like, you couldn't imagine a world where you could see a screen accurate hot rod turn into a small piece of plastic that looked just like it came from the film and transformed, and the vehicle mode looked just like the film. The amount of like just brilliant engineering is incredible, and the fact that we've gone to this point where you could go to the store and you're seeing the stuff that, like, you know, 5, 6, 7-year-old you, um, 5, 6, 7-year-old you was just like, oh my God, like,
yeah,
you can only dream of this stuff, right?
literally. In fact, we've come so far now. We have pink hot rod. You know, I mean, how crazy is that? And it's just, I mean, again, it's literally beyond your wildest imagination. It's just, I never would have thought it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Ant sends me the link to your website, and he's like, my buddy Hooks wrote this. I think you're gonna like it. And he was not wrong. Now, full disclosure, there are folks in the fandom, and sometimes like of Ant's era, folks I've wanted to reach out to, and you're certainly on that list. Like I love what you put out on Twitter, and you're a guy that I've always wanted a reason to reach out to, because like a lot of the ways that I do my interviews in these types of shows, it's like I need like a thing to talk about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it comes from my college radio background, where it's like, you know, my content was like interviews for promotion. Oh, you have a new tour? Great, come on my show. You got a new EP coming out? Great, come on my show. So
Yeah.
it's always, I need like that little nugget of content, because folks will ask me, well, hey, why don't you talk to this person? Why don't you talk to that person? I'll get there. I'll get there. And anyway, now we're here, but I really dug Descent into Chaos, and it does some really cool stuff that's a sequel to the movie that's different from the sequels to the movie that we got.
Mhm.
But then as time passed, I don't remember when, oh, it was just recently, back here in January. Then I see Song of Jupiter drop, and it's like, okay, all right, God damn it, I'm reaching out, and I got to get Hooks on the show, and we gotta talk about all this. And now, retroactively, I'm kind of regretful that I didn't reach out to you before Song of Jupiter came out, so I can have you on twice. But that's just me
It's
over
okay.
mitigating.
Okay. I'm just honestly grateful for the opportunity to chat with you. I mean, this is obviously stuff that I get excited about, and you know, the level of investment just as a fan in creating any piece of art, regardless of how people receive it. There's a lot of joy in that, and the fact that, you know, folks like you like resonate with it so much means the universe to me, more than I can even express.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a screen share, and you know, we're not going to go through it, you know, page by page and give away the whole story, but I feel the compulsion, since this also is a live video stream, to kind of give folks a little bit of a, you know, visual representation of what we're chatting about here. So give me just a quick second. Yeah, let's start with Descent into Chaos. I'm going to click on that there, and then I will go back over here. Oh, actually, that kind of works out halfway okay. So so this is on your website, tilltheday.com. It is a downloadable PDF, as well as being able to scroll through and actually just read the comic there. I am going to toggle over to the I think this works. Let me check my screen share. Yep, that is still screen sharing. Oh, I'm doing it all wrong. I want to bring up the page that really got my my attention here. So yeah, it's right there. The Transformers the movie, Descent into Chaos. And one of the things that I immediately got my attention, because that was the attention grabbing page for me. Before we get into some of the other cool stuff that you've done with this, like you've got suggested Spotify songs and music, as well as some casting, could you talk about kind of the origin of this project, and why why a different sequel to Transformers the movie, and then from there kind of how this story kind of knocked loose in your mind?
Yeah. So there was just something in me for a number of years that wanted to create, I would call it pure unadulterated fan fiction, right? Where it's just like, what if there was this unlimited budget of like creating the perfect companion to the original movie?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to create something that had the chaotic energy of the 1986 film, right? And
Yeah.
that felt like, okay, like, because if you can't do like a side story or a companion to the movie without trying to recreate some of those visceral feelings when you first watched it, right? The like, oh, I see my heroes. Oh, my heroes are killed. Who's this villain? And it's like the stakes are super high. But I also wanted to, just as a fan, fill in the blanks of what happened to certain characters and certain set pieces from the series, right? So when I think about the Ark, right, even though it wasn't called the Ark, the Autobot base, why was there so much attention on Autobot City in the film? Why was the Ark heavily fortified in season 3 when Trypticon attacked it?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like there was a story there. There was something there. But then the other thing that really drew my attention was, season 1 was all about like the creation and the utilization of the space bridge. It was something that I think the show like was so focused on, and then it was just taken away from us. And there's, not to give too much of the story away, but there was this sense of like, was the space bridge important enough for it to be a target? Because I think that would have been, given that the Decepticons had to hijack the Autobot shuttle to get to Earth, when before they had a clear connective piece between Earth and Cybertron. So why did they have to hijack and assassinate a crew of Autobots when they could have just gone there in the first place? And then there were a lot of characters I felt that, weren't given the attention or love or the investment or even the closure that they deserved. Like I think about Alita 1. Season 2, it's like she is Optimus Prime's sister / partner. Why wasn't she given more of a spotlight? Hell, why wasn't she treated as the next leader of the Autobots? What if we gave her a spotlight as the leader of this crew of Autobots? I think about Skyfire, who was a reformed Decepticon, and in a movie that is all about like these high stakes. Why was this character, who was the bridge between these two deeply hated factions, like why did he disappear? Obviously Snarl. There's just like the big question mark over like, and obviously it's like animation error or translation between script and film, but why did he suddenly appear after the battle was over? How come there are only 4 Dinobots that jumped out of the shuttle, and then like Snarl was there for a bit? Like, what was he doing during that time? And that's actually something I'll focus on in the future. But I think the thing that really truly bothered me, beyond wanting to sort of fill in the gaps and maybe even creating visuals of deleted scenes, or even expanding on what Bob Budiansky and Don Figueroa put together for the adaptation of the original movie for IDW, when they had like the combiners outside of the arc.
Yeah.
Like, that bothered me ever since I was a kid. Was when RC is pulling in Wind Charger's dying body, and his eyes are flickering, and she is dragging him, and then she lays him down, and there is Wheeljack dead.
Yeah.
Like the main character of the first 2 seasons, one of the most memorable silhouettes and the ears, and like, yeah, this makes me sound like someone who has never, ever, ever like deeply invested, like, oh, the guy with the cool voice, guy with the cool ears. But the fact is that his death, can we curse on the show?
Yes, yeah, please. Yeah, just let it go.
His death was bullshit. I'm just gonna call it. The fact that the engineer did not have any plans for, like, any contingency plans for his death just really bothered me. And Wheeljack, at least the Wheeljack I know, would make it so that he would never, ever, ever die. And maybe that's just like me, like reading into like certain scenes and certain bits from the first couple of seasons and from the comic. But what if Wheeljack, that wasn't Wheeljack who died?
Right.
And I think there's enough there to like create just this extra level of mystique around what Wheeljack would do in a situation when he knows the protection of Autobot City and potentially the protection of the Ark is tantamount to their survival.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he just happen to be in the missile room? That would be an easy target for the Decepticons.
Yeah, it's like, why was he even there to begin with? That kind of energy.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to find. I was frantically scrolling through the PDF. So I mean, I love this composition so much.
That is all thanks to Phil Knott. Phil Knott is a joy to work with. When I was thinking about who would be the best partner to bring a new version of the movie to life, the guy who, like, I feel like the movie was his parent, you know, his binary, you know, non-gendered parent who just birthed him into existence to draw all the things that you could imagine as a fan. And he is phenomenal.
Well, and his art has such a cool, exotic texture to it. Yeah. It's like, it's not necessarily like the Don Figueroa, you know, kind of like Guido Guidi traditional Transformers art. It has that bendy fluorodairy texture to it. Yes. And it's perfect for a companion piece to Transformers the movie. It's even got like a Studio Ox feel to it.
Oh yeah,
as well. You know, like some of like that crazy exotic box art, and some of that manga and that anime. It's just like, and it's all kind of like distilled down into this clean style that I get the chills just thinking about it and looking at it. I mean, it's like, just,
if you go to the page where you first see Superion and Defensor, and you just see how they are standing in front of Omega Supreme. I think it's like when he sent that to me, I was like, okay, this was
look at that
worth all the blood. I mean, look at that. Like, and I just like I imagine like Vince DiCola's voice, like, it is the year 2005, and then like just riffing on that, and then you see this reveal of the Ark and like the way he put that together. It's Phil is brilliant and deserves all the money and all the coins and all the flowers that anyone could give him, because he is an absolute lovely man. And I deeply appreciate him.
So how'd you guys get hooked up?
We were following each other on Twitter for a bit. And I was like just thinking about what is the best artist for this work. And, you know, I had seen his art, and I actually reached out to him, and my question was, this is completely random, but do you take commissions? It was just like sort of like this, like, I love your art, like, and I felt a little bit nervous actually reaching out to him. And I don't typically get like fanboyish about people because we all have the sense of greatness within each of us, and at the same time, I was like, I have seen his art. I am like subscribed to his coffee site, and I just wanted to work with him. And so I reached out, and he was like, yeah, great. Can you send me something? So I sent him the first few pages up until when Overdrive escapes from the Decepticon shuttle, right? And after a couple of months, he sent me the first 7 pages of the book, and I was just blown away, absolutely blown away. And I just knew, like, okay, we have to continue working together. So we finished up this first book. He did some work for Song of Jupiter, and there's actually, I'm actually looking at a page of his right now. So to say that there's more to come from Phil and from myself, I think is, I could just say it. We're going to be working together for a while. Here's just a quick sneak of, Star Saber and Perceptor and the Wheeljacks.
Oh man, that is so cool. What a cool tease. I love it.
Yeah, he's
great. And yeah, so I mean that style is particularly conducive for the Japanese characters, specifically Star Saber. I can't wait for that. That's just going to be super rad.
I mean, you want to talk about the Japanese characters? Wait, there we go. Let's say go.
Perfect.
I mean, come on. He pours every ounce into every single pixel. It is so cool to look at. It is so cool to just see all the great work that he does.
Yeah. And just so, richly detailed and all that. It's just, it's a really cool project. Congratulations to you and Phil on your success on getting it out there. So I know a couple folks that have done like fan art and zines and fan comics and things like that. What was your motivation for presenting it this way? Like as like on a website that you can download a PDF and be able to look at the fully illustrated art. How did that aspect of it come to be?
Yeah, I think that, for me, I've had the fortune to like not have to do this for a living. And I feel like if I was going to create something that is, number one, fully unsanctioned by Hasbro and Takara, and and number two is a work just of love for the franchise. I wanted to make it available to as many people as possible without having to pay a dime for it.
Yeah.
To me, it was just my expression of not just love for the franchise, but for my love of all the friends that have become like family to me. And for folks who, might want just something a little different than they were getting from, IDW at the time. And then of course, they lost the license, but, it was work that I was just wanting to put out into the world. And just, if one person read it and liked it, then I feel like I did my job.
Well, cool. Mission accomplished. I liked it quite a bit.
You're my one person. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And, I'm a big believer that, so I just want to make it clear for if there's any questions, every single artist was paid. So I paid every single person, both with this project and with Song of Jupiter. And I basically have acted as a sort of semi-publisher of fan art. But I also want to make sure the artists and the creators were taken care of, but I also wanted to make sure that for fans who wanted to enjoy the work of these artists, number one, that they were fully credited and paid for and taken care of, but number two, that they had access to it, and that, I wasn't going to receive a single dime from it, because it's just, I didn't do this for any sort of recognition. I even thought about for a moment, like not even including my name on this work.
Yeah, sure.
and just saying like, let's just give like all the love to the artist. And that's why I also made sure that for like anytime I talk about this project, it's we, it's not me, it's truly we. And wanting to highlight every single person from, you know, the cover artist to the, you know, Paulo and Phil as the main story artist, to Leandro and Carlos Trigo as backup artist, and then all the colorists and the Victor who did the logo, and even the guy I worked with for like a short time to do the lettering, and then he dropped out, Tim. And I don't mind him because he was probably like, I'm not spending my time doing this fan work. I have bigger stuff to buy. So I ended up doing the lettering myself. But I'm like, also like, hey, Tim, like you started the lettering work and you inspired me to like continue on this lettering journey for myself. So, you know, there's this Tiny Desk video with Usher where he says like life is a collaborative effort. And I truly believe that. And same with this work. It's truly collaborative. And I don't think anyone would have even given it any attention had I not, you know, allowed the artist to bring it to life and to believe in my vision for this work. So.
Absolutely. And you know, that's one of my favorite things to do on this podcast is spotlight independent artists and put something on a platform that, you know, it might not have gotten the recognition otherwise. So I'm hoping that through this video and through finding the books, and again, you can check out all of the both of the comics at the website tilltheday.com. You can get Descent into Chaos as well as Song of Jupiter there for the Freeze. But yeah, you know, find these artists, follow them, commission them, you know. Yeah, and that's the thing too. I don't want to bring up too much Twitter drama, but like talking about like commissioning artists, just I don't know if you saw this in your feed, but like there was some discourse about some people saying like artists need to start charging less for commissions or some shit like that.
Charge more. I mean,
yes,
people charge double, triple their rates, and people need to pay for them for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And stop trying to pay in exposure bucks.
No, no. Artists are underpaid as it is.
Yes.
Honestly, artists are underpaid. The work that they do is often, you know, treated as freeware, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, artists put their heart and soul into everything they do. And when they get paid, it could be life-changing for them. And this notion that, and I did not see this drama. I mean, Twitter is full of drama as it is. So whatever, especially since, you know, who took over. And by the way, just for like, I used to work at Twitter years ago, and I am deeply disappointed in what's happened to that side in that company. But that's another story for another day. But just this notion that artists should be paid less is just like Will Jack stuff was bullshit. I think that is bullshit, and people need to shut up about paying them less because they deserve far more than they receive. They are the modern storytellers that entertain us. And, you know, even like when I look at companies and studios like, you know, the Mouse and other folks who are underpaying, you know, their creators, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
It's deeply disappointing when the creative arts become a commodity.
Yeah.
And a undervalued commodity at that.
Yeah.
So commission independent artists, commission fan artists, you know, give them money, buy their stuff. But at the very least,
give them credit
you know,
for
I was gonna say, it's like, you know, social shares don't cost nothing.
Right.
You know, followings and support and things like that's nothing.
No.
So I really want to get into Song of Jupiter because it is such a different project than Descent into Chaos is. But before we get into that, to kind of cap off, let me bring up my screen again, because there was something specific I wanted to ask you with regards to Descent into Chaos. Where did it go? So one of the things that really stuck out to me that I thought was really cool was this fan casting that you did, and I thought since we were here, what a really creative spin on that. Could you talk about some of your motivations for your choices? Because there are some that are very obvious, but there are others that are delightfully surprising.
Well, let me just start off with sort of like my thinking around this project. So I struggled a lot with the soundtrack, I will tell you. And part of it was I did not want to just recreate the soundtrack from the original movie. And it was like, if this was truly a companion film and done with the spirit of this is going to, like, you know, transform your universe, you know, as a kid, it's like, what was the popular music of the time? And then I had like 7-8 different songs for, you know, these first 37 pages or whatever. And I realized like it just didn't flow well. And so I'm like, okay, let's tie back into Stan Bush. Let's add like, you know, a different song, but let's also like tie something into the film. And, you know, I was thinking, okay, you see Overdrive in the shuttle and he's taking off from the Decepticons. And then you just like hear, similar to when Lithon was destroyed, then you just hear the original Transformers theme, like do 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 do, and I'm just like, okay, this is great. But I feel like you can't have the intro of the Transformers movie without a cast. When you see like Judd Nelson and Leonard Nimoy, and so I was just thinking, like, who were the voice artists and the actors of the time who would be just really cool to see on screen, and sort of what was like the permission that I would give myself to also like just be innovative, like, and different with the cast, right? So, you know, I had like Skyfire's, you know, original actor, and
Sure.
I had one of Alita One's, you know, actors, and but then I was thinking, okay, so there's some stunt celebrity casting in the original movie, right? So, okay, like who was big at the time? Judd Nelson was obviously a huge get. Eric Idle was a huge get. Leonard Nimoy was a huge get. In 1986, Eddie Murphy would have been a huge get. And so why not have him be Whirl? You know, Whirl, like, and I didn't give Whirl Eddie Murphy's voice when I wrote it, but when I reread the comic thinking Eddie Murphy's voice, I was like, okay, this is the guy, right? When I think about like Molly Ringwald, and I changed Bumper's gender simply because there were simply not enough women Transformers, right? And I hated that, you know, they were treated as sort of like this other thing, and there are others from the very beginning, like Shockwave.
Yep.
Female Autobots, like no, it's like, and that's where GoBots actually got things right, because from the very beginning, you know, there's Crasher.
Yeah, Crasher is right there, you know, part of like the command structure, and
yeah. So, you know, I was like, Bumper was never in this series, so let's just change their gender. And Molly Ringwald would be a great, you know, add. And I was thinking, you know, Molly Ringwald as sort of like the opposite of Judd Nelson, because, you know, there is a Descent into Chaos 2 and 3 that may or may not see the light of day. You know, if you know, there's a new publisher, I don't want to compete with, you know, a big publisher with, you know, myself. So we'll see what happens. But there is an arc that I have for Bumper that's sort of hinted by the cover. And I think that you can sort of tell, like, you know, she will go on her own hero's journey throughout the series. Does that mean Alita 1's going to die? I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, you know, Bumper is holding the sword on the very cover of Descent into Chaos #1, and it happens to look a lot like the sword that Rodimus Prime came with you know, his toy a couple years ago. That was also in Regeneration 1 by IDW. So, you know, draw your own conclusions. It happens to be glowing. and there is a reason that Straxus attacked the Ark, and it may be for the space bridge, it might be for something else. So I'll just leave that, as sort of like a tease for what I have planned.
I love it. That's awesome. So yeah, and Grace Jones as Slipstream. It's like, I mean, brilliant.
Yeah.
And of course, very appropriate for the era.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Slipstream, I have huge plans for both in this and Song of Jupiter. There may be some connective tissue between the two. Should I be able to complete both stories by art? Like the stories are written, but if I was able to complete them in terms of the art being produced. But in my mind, we often see like the big, villains like your Megatron, Galvatrons, the Shockwave, Starscreams, Straxus. And I feel like Slipstream is a character that could become the next big Transformers antagonist. Someone who definitely has a hunger for power and is willing to take whatever risk on herself in order to achieve that power, because she believes truly that she is a much smarter, much better leader than, better than Straxus, better than Megatron, certainly, better than Tarn.
Right. Yeah.
And so, were my dreams to come true, you would sort of see like her arc in both books come to fruition in a way that I would love folks to then look at her through a different lens, because I think we've seen bits of it throughout the franchise. But to actually invest in creating a Grace Jones voice villain of the ages has long been a dream of mine. So
that would just be amazing. God, I can't stop looking at Phil's art here.
Wow.
It is just so incredible. So you cast Keith David as Straxus, which is perfect. How unrelated? How do you feel about the casting of Keith David as Grimlock in Earthspark coming up?
I am so looking forward to it. In my friend's Discord channel, I was like, we need more David in our lives. And just the idea of that voice in Grimlock, why didn't he voice Grimlock 10 years ago? Right? I mean, it is a perfect match. And I would even argue, why isn't, Grimlock for the live action series, had he been given a personality? Keith David should have been the voice of Grimlock there. I mean, it's a perfect match made in heaven. And, all love for Greg Berger, but of
course,
there's this gravitas, this I can, like, I wish I could do Keith David. This level of like, me Grimlock can crush you if I wanted to, but I choose not to because I am voiced by Keith David. I don't know. There's something in that it's just brilliant casting. Absolutely.
100% agree. And I think also, in addition to the gravitas, there's also a fun to it. It's like there's any number of roles where Keith David is just delightfully unhinged, and you need a little bit of a little left of sanity for Grimlock there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm really excited for that casting. I think that's going to be great. I mean, again, Earthspark is just hitting it out of the park. I mean, I did not expect it to resonate with me as deeply as it has, but it's like there's a lot of meat on this bone for this children's show.
A lot of people say like Transformers Prime is a spiritual successor to Beast Wars. I would actually argue that Earthspark is. Just the time that's taking to build the characters, the level of care, the mythos that has been untold, that will eventually reveal itself. There is so much depth in there, and I cannot wait to like watch more. It is the show where a kid, it would be my Beast Wars.
Yeah. And much like with Beast Wars and much like with G1, I think Earthspark has the opportunity to age with its audience.
Yeah.
And what a cool journey to be on.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And just, the relative risk that they're taking, when I think about myself as a kid and when I looked at the human characters, none of them looked like me.
Yeah.
right? And so again, even though I'm not a parent myself, I'm just thinking how cool it is for folks who look like me, who have kids, or even the kids that look like my sister and me, when we were young, to now have these human characters to look up to. It's just so awesome to have that. And I'm glad that both the representation is being done with respect, and not just the racial representation, but the gender representation as
Yeah.
well, and
Yeah.
and the non-binary representation. It's for a series like Transformers, where characters can be anything they wish to be, whether they like scan a form or they're reborn into something. The notion that gender uh, is such a debate, and it really shouldn't be. Not with these characters. I mean, you'll notice in Song of Jupiter, um, it's something that I didn't want to call out too heavily, because I just felt like for he, his, and she, her, it's those aren't called out heavily. So for RC, you'll notice that their their pronouns are they, them,
Hmm.
and the Decepticons respect them enough to use
Yeah.
they pronouns for RC, but I don't call it out specifically because that just happens to be who RC is
Right.
in the series. And that was important to me to make sure that there's a equal level of representation across the board. Like I did not want there to be this heavily male centered species of robots that and I even played with like, what if every single character in Song of Jupiter went by they, them?
Hmm.
But I reversed that. That said, it's to see an official media like EarthSpark is phenomenal, and to it not be treated as a big deal whatsoever, I'm just a huge fan of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked about this on our EarthSpark episode, but I think one of the best takeaways of, well, not the best takeaways, a cool side effect of Nightshade being a character in EarthSpark is that it inspired a new short pact.
Mhm.
It was cool to see Walkie kind of like return to that,
Yes.
and just, I mean, what a perfect thing at a perfect time.
Walkie doesn't talk about this much, but we used to play in the sandbox together as kids. Uh, that's a story for another day.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, that being said, so since we had kind of laid a lot of the track for it already, let's kind of get into Song of Jupiter, because as we talked about before, it's a different different feel than Descent into Chaos. It's an anthology. There's short stories. There's a bunch more artists. So kind of the pardon the redundancy, but let's kind of go through kind of some of the same process. How did this project come together, especially kind of coming off of the heels of Descent into Chaos?
Yeah, so I actually wrote both projects at the same time, but I wanted to take a different approach with both. In my mind, I was thinking, what if I was given full reins for the license of Transformers, and was able to like build uh, something new but familiar with it, right? Sort of taking a legacy approach to the storytelling. Quite frankly, if I had the license, I would likely be an all new series with all new characters, new designs, new origins, brand new
Sure.
universe. But at the end of the day, I am borrowing toys that I don't own. So at most, what we could do is provide a new lens to the questions that, in many ways have stuck with me for years as a fan, and also wanting to do something like completely new that would potentially bring new people into the series and into the franchise. So one of the questions I had was, like, I think about Optimus Prime in the original series, and why was he worthy of resurrection when Ironhide and Prowl and others weren't? And what if there was an opportunity to bring these characters back who seem to have fairly final deaths in the cartoon,
Mhm.
and put them into new settings, right? And then speaking of Optimus Prime, I also was thinking about how when, at the last line of The Return of Optimus Prime Part 1, Skylinks is like, it's true, our leader is back. And then Prime's like, yes, Skylinks. And now no force in the universe could stop me. It's like, why are those your first lines? You just kind of came back to life and you're essentially threatening the universe. Who are you?
Yeah.
And so like it was, and I noticed that Prime's character actually changed a bit after that. Like he wasn't the same character. And oftentimes people use the movie as like this, like, oh, he's a character with gravitas. And, I think the moment forced Prime to act a certain way in the film. Well, you look at seasons 1 or 2, like that's not who he was, right? But then suddenly his character is different and he is plagued by Vector Sigma and the Matrix and the Rebirth. And he had to empty the Matrix at that moment in time in order to stop a plague. And I feel like there's more meat there that we could pull on. And while we don't, necessarily chew on that a lot in the story, there's hints of that, of where I'm going with Optimus Prime as a character. It's sort of like bringing him back to like true basics in a way that might not seem very obvious, or maybe it was a little bit too obvious based on the end of the story. And like those are like some of the things that bothered me as a kid. But then the other thing was, there's all these Transformers crossovers. So you have your G.I. Joes, you had My Little Pony,
sure,
you had Visionaries, you had Star Trek. What else was there? Ghostbusters,
Back to the Future,
Back to the Future,
Top Gun.
Without giving away the end of the story for those who haven't read it, there's a specific franchise, particularly 2 franchises, that it astonished me that had never crossed over with Transformers officially before.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, if I'm going to create something new, but tied into the past, let's really tie into the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there is a subtitle for the 4 books that would make up Song of Jupiter that, you see the last few pages, I think becomes obvious, but just say Transformers Versus, and then fill in the blank. And then that is where the rest of the story after this book would take place.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Very cool. I mean, I love everything about this. I love that all of the art styles are different enough to stand on their own, but still comprehensive to where it all ties in together. Everything belongs together, it feels like, and that's kind of the mark of a good anthology. So I was stuck on this page because I love this on-ramping that you're doing here. It's like, it was the year 2005. After millions of years, the great wars of Cybertron end, but at a cost. Optimus Prime, the magnanimous leader of the Autobots, was dead. It was the year 2010. Prime is resurrected. Then we start getting into unfamiliar territory. It was the year 2030. In a time of the Great Peace, a question is asked of Autobot philosophers and scientists. If Prime can return from the great beyond, why can't anyone else? Then it is the year 2050. We now return to the Transformers. I love that. That's just like such, I mean, like you can hear it. And it's just so such terrific world building.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean it gives you everything you need right off the bat. But yeah, just scrolling through this, it's just I found it just a whole lot of fun. So let me go. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit further here. I don't want to go too far because there's a spot towards the end that that I don't want to necessarily spoil for folks here, but it was one of those things where it's certain characters from other universes come in, and there's a bit of peril and a surprising return in an unexpected way, and I was just gobbling it all up. I was really into again the story and what you guys were doing here.
Thank you.
So very similar to when we were talking about your collaboration and partnership with Phil. Talk about some of the artists and collaborators that you worked on Song of Jupiter, because like it is a lengthy list and a lot of really cool folks. So I'm just going to leave it on the credits page here. That way folks can see, and I'll try as best as I can to have some of this stuff in the show notes as well. So folks can follow all of these folks out on socials and check out their stuff, because it's terrific work. I can't emphasize that enough.
Thank you. Well, let's start with Paulo. Paulo is the main artist of the story. He is the foundation. He is my collaborator. We're talking about doing something creator owned next together, which it's going to be a long project, but I'm hoping we're able to do something really special with that. But Paulo is he's a trained artist. He's from Brazil. And I actually went on the subreddit Comic Book Collabs to find him. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to do something new but familiar with this franchise, I would want to work with an artist who is like a classic comic book artist, but who has not done Transformers before. And we actually started off with 1 page, and then it turned to 10 pages because I didn't know how big this could be, right? Like I had huge dreams and ideas. And when I got the first page from him, and I should show you his pencils, but when I got his pencils and then his inks, and I saw that first page, Optimus Prime, hands on his hips, looking out at New Cybertron, and then the progression of, the history of what's happening in the universe, I was like, oh my God. And I got his first page, because I have the date here, May 15, 2020.
Oh, wow. That far back.
And so I don't know if you can tell, and I can send this to you if you want to add it to the show, but
sure.
I saw this and I'm like, this is better than I could have imagined.
Oh, that's so clean, dude. So tight.
So tight. And he had never done Transformers before. And the fact that he had never done Transformers, but he spent time studying the characters, the franchise, and he has a clean eye for storytelling. It was incredible. And then the next pages came in, and I'm looking at like this page with Jazz and Galaxy Shuttle and Hot Rod and RC just going at it with the enemy, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like you can do so much. And so it was at that point I'm like, we're gonna take this all the way together and just tell the whole story. He was just somebody that I admire as an artist, as a creator, and he gave feedback, because like I am not a professional comic book writer, so he would say like, what if we just put like this panel on this next page, or what if we expanded this into a double page spread? And he was someone who, like, he said he learned a lot from me, but quite frankly, I learned a ton from him about comic book storytelling that makes me want to do it more and more and more. And I really appreciate him as a collaborator. So and the fact that he did like 81 pages, 85 pages, including double page spreads for this, this fan project, is just incredible. So, I could do nothing but thank Paulo for his collaboration on all of this. And then, like, if we're talking about like just the main story to start with, first, right? Like Giuliano did the first 20 pages, and I have never seen anyone like bring such an animated feel to art. Like it was like incredible. Like Giuliano is. Paulo actually recommended Giuliano to me, because I was like, I don't know any artist, any colorist. Who have you worked with? Who do you like? And he's like Giuliano. And like you go back up to when the Autobots enter the satellite. Like look at that. Like look how everything just pops, and it has this like animated movie feel to it. And I see this, I could just stare at this all day.
Yeah.
Like I could hear the action, the posing, the composition, the heat of the battle, literally. I mean, it is
Yeah.
so great. It is so great. And then, we scroll down to, gosh, I mean, there's quite a bit in here. Let's go to the Grimlock page when he got off
Sure.
the scene.
Let's see if I can find that here. How far am I going here?
It's like 4 pages after. Although that was a cool page too.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's sit there for oh, there's Grimlock. There's Grimlock.
Yeah, that's the one.
Come on.
Oh,
Come on. Paulo and Julie, like I had this vision in my head, and they made my dreams turn into like just garbage, because what they put together trumps anything I could have imagined. I mean, look at that. Look at that. It's beautiful.
well, and the thing that I like about this project as well, and their sensibilities, is that they're taking liberties with the character designs.
Yeah.
It's not quite any particular toy, but it's kind of like all the toys. It's not exactly the comic model. It's delightfully off model is what I'm trying to say, but still very evocative.
Yeah.
Like,
I told them, go nuts. I'm not married to any specific model. Whatever it is that you are drawing your own attention to, whatever it is that you are energized by, please lean into that. And there's something about giving artists the freedom to create with what they know they're strong at. I'm a fan of doing that, and it creates its own like design language within the book, right? Because they're creating their own silhouettes and creating their own characters, and like you're feeling the differences between like this Grimlock versus other Grimlocks you have seen in the past.
Right. Absolutely, man. So cool. I like you. I could just stare at this all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the character designs. The action is just so kinetic. And yeah, it is just terrific. But as we're scrolling through here, folks might have seen as we're watching on the video, a couple things. You have interstitial text as well. Why make that choice?
So I'm a huge fan of Jonathan Hickman.
Okay.
I don't know if you've read his X-Men work, but he's done this with other, like some of his creator-owned stuff as well.
Yeah.
And there was something that like I loved about it from a storytelling point of view, particularly given we have the well-established Teletran 1, Teletran 2. So let's like give Teletran the opportunity to tell like a bit of history in between the gaps, to fill the gaps a bit, right? And there's also like this other like thread that we talk about, the Teletrans later. But I just thought it'd be cool to like have, Teletran be a part of the story and taking inspiration from the work Jonathan Hickman did and integrate that into a Transformer story.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it's something that makes it stand out. It just kind of give it like a visual uniqueness. So you've also commissioned a number of different covers for this project as well. Do we want to talk about some of the awesome cover artists that you worked with on this?
So I think you have to scroll down to like page 130 to go to the cover art. But I had actually originally thought, like, wouldn't it be cool to print out, or not print out, no, keep going. That was actually a spoiler there.
Whoops. The thing I was looking to avoid.
It's okay. It's okay.
Shield your eyes. Shield your eyes.
Shield your eyes. You didn't see that. You didn't see
that.
But scroll down one more. Although I will say,
I do love the corner boxes.
Oh, yeah. So the original idea was, let's create like a series. Like I was actually envisioning like a 12-part maxi series, right? Of, just shipping things quarterly, and having like different cover art for each issue, and actually having variant art for each issue as well. And so I commissioned a number of artists to just like put their spin on different parts of the story. And I think about let's talk about Diego for a second.
Sure.
So I commissioned him back when only like a few pages of the story were drawn by Paulo, and I gave him the overview for it. And it was actually a time when I actually had the Autobot clones instead of Strong Arm and Override as characters, and then I decided to switch it to those two. And so like I had him, he created like 4 different things. It turns out he was a long-term fan. I guess we interacted weirdly enough back in the Usenet days.
Get out of here.
Like, is this the same? Like, are you like Subsector Hooks? And Subsector Hooks, by the way, was something that Megatron said in season 2 of Beast Wars as a reference to me. Yep. Which is weird to say out loud, by the way. I don't think I've ever said that out loud in my life. It's been sort of like you type it. But so, and he brought that up. And if you look in the like bottom left corner, you'll see 2020 with his signature. So the fact that 3 years later we produced this is great. But he is somebody who is an absolute like hardcore fan from the old days. And when he put this together, he said he was like watching the movie and listening to the soundtrack. And I see this, I'm just like, this is a perfect piece of Transformers art. This is like this is the beginnings of a whole universe when you see this. And it makes me just like want to know what adventures these characters are going to go on for whatever period of time we get to experience it with them. So, Diego was phenomenal. And I wish we could work more together, but he's doing an awesome self-published comic. I highly recommend everyone check it out. It's great. I know you'll link to it in the video. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So there's him. And then, Cart Studio, they put together this freaking awesome image of Optimus Prime. I wanted something where, he is standing like a statue with like 2 different weapons that he is known for in different universes. And I saw this come and I felt like I was looking at a visual image of the real Optimus Prime coming out.
Yeah.
It's tremendous and it's scary and it's I don't use epic a lot, but I feel like it's an epic image of the kind of story we're going to tell about Optimus in all his different forms.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like, especially since he has the Age of Extinction sword and all that. So yeah, it's very much like some of the other pieces we saw. It's kind of like a amalgam of all these kind of like different evergreen Optimuses kind of put together.
Yeah,
it's really cool. I mean, again, it invokes the silhouette, but it's not tied to one particular version. So so you could just go nuts. It's great.
And by the way, on the Age of Extinction piece, I chose that sword for a reason. And as you go through the story, you'll notice like he has 2 of those swords, and then Magnus has one of the swords eventually. And what happens with Optimus, right? And I wanted to sort of, and there was a part of me when I was writing this that was thinking about the journey that Age of Extinction and eventually, The Last Knight Optimus went on. And by the way, I hate those movies, but
sure,
there's something to be said about seeing a hero fall from grace and not noticing his own fall.
Yeah.
And is there something behind that? And I think it comes down to like, is that character out of character? And if it's that person's out of character, why is that? Yeah. And also, if we're really trying to go back to basics, for a certain archetype of Optimus Prime, how might we facilitate that change while also answering the question of what makes this Optimus special compared to other characters who befell the same fate as he did?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the thing with villains too is they're the heroes of their own story.
Yep.
So yeah, it's interesting ground to cover. I I agree with you about the movies, and it is interesting though, and we talked about this a little bit before we went live here,
Yeah.
but um when I was so salty about like name reuse and things like that,
Yeah.
I was also pretty salty about all of the different liberties being taken with the movies, but like as I've interacted with more folks in this fandom, and I think what really crystallized it was I've now known fans that had similar experiences with Transformers 2007 that I did in 1986 with Transformers the movie.
Yeah.
And hearing somebody talk about that um sense of awe and wonder
Hmm.
snapped me right out of it forever. I was just like, "Oh, I understand now in a way that I didn't before." Because we're the age that we are, and it's kind of hard to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes. But I needed somebody to explicitly tell me that, to like, oh, because like I've slowly warmed up to the perspective of, oh well, you know what, that those movies reinvigorated the franchise in a big bad mainstream way and
Yeah.
pumped mainstream success and even more important sales and dollars into it.
Yep.
So I understood it from the value, but my off ramp was always like, yeah, but the content isn't necessarily for me. It's like, I could get on board conceptually.
Yeah.
But it is interesting though that there are terrific concepts that are not fully realized in the way that we saw play out on screen. But that's what fan fiction is for, and that's something that I've learned as I've gotten to know more people in this fandom. It's like I can't not watch G1 episodes without a shipper's perspective.
Mhm.
It's just like, oh yeah, these two characters occupy the same space for a couple scenes. They must be in love.
Right.
That kind of thing. It's like,
Yeah.
before like 2018, I never would have thought to look at things from that perspective, but now I can't shut it off.
Mhm.
And I think that's why I enjoy Earthspark so much too, because like there's so much depth,
Mhm.
and it's like somebody with like a fan fiction point of view perspective. Like I don't write fic, but
Mhm.
I have a lot of friends that do. So I can't help but look at things from like a different point of view. But I'm getting off track there.
No, it's all on track. We're here to talk about these robots who turn into appliances sometimes. So yeah, great.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah.
And look, and we talked about this a little bit before we went live, and there is something to be said about like the different perspectives that we all hold, right? The different ways that stories evoke emotions within any of us. And the fact is that, whatever those feelings may be, whether it's, a revulsion of hearing, Ironhide having, being a kid in Energon versus, being a pickup truck in Robots in Disguise, or being this rough and tumble minivan in the original series. Those feelings are true. And one thing that I've let go of is the sense of trying to police how people react to any sort of entertainment. Because, whether you're somebody who like feels like, anything before 1986 is the only true Transformers, or you're somebody who's like me, Beast Wars will never be beat. Or, you grew up with Transformers Prime, and to you, like Silas and Skyquake and those characters are, like the best characters you've ever seen, put to the screen. There's a place and time when certain things resonate with us. And oftentimes we, take whatever it is that we feel and think about the hills that, we die on as what's well and true. And anything that's separate from that is an attack on that. But the fact is that the perspectives and the ways that certain pieces of art resonate with us are resonant for a reason. And so we need to hold true to that as much as possible and create this understanding that, It's okay if someone, doesn't believe that Transformers after a certain year was good. It's okay if someone loves everything that Michael Bay has ever done, because what we consider art, like, who are you to judge how we are, how art makes us feel?
Mhm.
And it's something that I've learned to, because I remember just like getting into so many debates with people, like on message boards like the Allspark and other places. And you know what? It doesn't matter. The life that we share and the art that we can talk about in debate. I mean, it's art for a reason,
Yeah.
and it's something that we should lean into having these discussions, as opposed to saying you're not allowed to like or dislike any piece of art, regardless of who's creating it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's kind of like, I don't know if it's a benchmark of maturity, but it's almost like reverse gatekeeping anymore, where it's like, oh, you like something different than what I do? Great, come on in.
mhm,
I mean, Transformers is such a sumptuous buffet where there's something for everybody. It's like, oh, you don't like that? Fine, pass it by, grab something else. It's like, you don't like this, but you might like this, and
mhm.
you'll really like this.
Yeah.
And it's there are few other legacy franchises that can do the same thing for so many fans across multiple generations. And I think, as folks like us that were there basically at the beginning, it's almost like the fanboy cycle, where it's like, this is precious to me, so
Hmm.
you can't have it. This is mine. This is for me and my friends. But
Yep.
as we get older and perhaps more mature, I don't know, the jury's still out on that, but yeah, it's like, I can have friends that are half my age that are into this in the same way I am. How
Yeah.
bizarre, but how delightful as well. It's amazing.
I'm really curious what the GoBot fans are going through right now. I
Yeah.
do that because, obviously Transformers blew up way more than GoBots ever did. But, to the point of like liking things different, there's also something to be said about liking things that no one else has, right?
Yeah.
That people, not very many people are able to share with you. I've maybe seen like one episode of GoBots in my life.
Mhm.
And it's because like I just never saw it as on the same level as Transformers. But you know, if you're a fan of GoBots, freaking phenomenal. If you're a fan of the Bionic Six,
Mhm.
uh, that's great. And life is for us to be enjoyed and to feel whatever it is that we're feeling, and let the different experiences that we feel resonate with us, however that may show up. And that's not a judgment of anyone's character. It's not a reprimand of whatever it is that people feel like. Music is another thing. Like, people often debate the merits of certain types of music. I love 90s hip hop and R&B.
Mhm.
I can't stand a lot of the art that's coming out today, but I also realize I am not the target audience for that, and that's okay. So, you know, if I'm gonna listen to like Wu Tang, or like Biggie, or old Jay Z and Nas, or on the R&B side Boyz II Men, Jodeci, while I'll consider that like phenomenal music, someone who's listening to, like, I don't know, like whatever new hip hop artists there are, or whatever new country artists there are, and that's fine. We can debate the merits of the art, but it doesn't make my opinion any more relevant than someone else's.
Totally. And what a terrific depth of insight. So much so to where I'm not sure how to segue back to talking about variant covers, but but no, that's very cool. So let's kind of talk about what's what's next. So
Hmm.
it's like, Song of Jupiter is out. Descent into Chaos is available. Both of those are available now for free at the website tilltheday.com with downloadable PDFs, as well as being able to just scroll through the thumbnails of the images of the art as well. But what's the future of these projects? It's like, because you put some teases out there already, like, showed off some cool preview art, but I guess, one, what is the future? But then, without kind of trying to handcuff yourself to scheduling, or what kind of pace, for lack of a better term, are you kind of looking at, like in the far flung future, or like soonish? Or
So I'll tell you, the first thing that will be released is a companion book of a few different short stories for Song of Jupiter, with an amazing cover by Andrew Griffith, who did the 2011 Transformers Robots in the Sky series. And then we have art by Phil, we have art by Carlos Trigo, we have Leandro, and we have another artist, Guillerme, who comes from the same studio of Paulo and Giuliano. And it's a companion that takes place in the same universe as the Song of Jupiter work, fills in a few gaps, but the idea is like similar to, I guess, how Hickman did with House of X and Powers of X. The Song of Jupiter books will be followed by this companion series, and it should be released in like a month or two. I'm just waiting for final colors, specifically colors from Leandro's work that includes this piece of art about Unicron.
Oh my gosh!
So there's going to be, a little bit more to come in the coming months. And then from there, and I'm also getting more art from Phil for his contributions. I showed you a little bit for this companion, but if I was to tease, I would say there's one fan favorite character in his story, or a new generation of that fan favorite character, and a fan hated character from probably the worst episode of Transformers ever, that I'm just looking forward to like showing the new spin on this character. And then from there, Phil and I will definitely be working on, at the very minimum, the second book of Descent into Chaos, where what we really wanted to do is continue the battle for Autobot City. Fill in some of the gaps of, because remember that part where it's like nighttime and then the next thing's day, and then Megatron's like, their defenses are broken. Let the slaughter.
Let's slaughter. Yeah,
I'm getting tired.
I got you.
Again. So what happened in between there, right? And sort of like a Dinobot reunion. So we'll see how Snarl came back to the Dinobot fold. Straxus absolutely murdering an Autobot that you wouldn't expect to be killed. And then continuing the adventures of Slipstream as you've never seen her. So that would be, book 2 for Descent into Chaos, where things get a lot worse for the people at the Ark and at Autobot City. And then for Song of Jupiter book 2, the actual book 2, it's going to continue the thread of sort of like both cliffhangers for that series, both for both versions of Optimus Prime that revealed themselves at the end of that book. And so you'll see 2 threads, one following one version of what happened to Optimus Prime, and then the other following the other version that happened to Optimus Prime, and sort of a mix of past and present to start filling in more of the gaps that were created by the first book. And I would even add that there's another character that, whose fate was unknown, that becomes pretty known in that. The other thing I'll add is, we'll see more of the crossover elements. And, if you're looking for hints, in book 2, Spike, the person who's revealed to be Spike, I should say, said, a cyclone of diamonds is approaching. But then she also said something in book 1 that wasn't addressed, or in the first chapter of book 1 that wasn't addressed in the rest of the book that will be addressed in book 2. Another one of those, like, micro moments, I'll call it, that will play itself out. I don't know. I'm not being a good salesperson at this point.
No,
the way it is, I'm not selling anything. So,
right.
But, I'm actually like really, truly excited for what we crafted for book 2 of Song of Jupiter, because, I feel like the first book was in many ways grounding, like putting the foundations of what the universe is, while creating a whole ton of questions for, what's this character's motivation? Why did this character end up in this place? And I feel like book 2 is where we start revealing our hand a little bit, while also creating a little bit more intrigue and mystery, and hopefully a bit of laughter and drama, because I wanted to make sure we added a bit more humor into this as well, so it wasn't all just doom and gloom. So
that's something that contemporary fans, or even fans our age, quite frankly, forget about from time to time. There is a levity, there is a lightness on its feet, and some moments of outright comedy. It's like, if you want Zack Snyder's The Transformers, go watch that Netflix series. It's like, and there are fans that want that, and it's great that is there for them. But I would also say, in my reformed gatekeeper voice, that it's I don't know, be careful for what you want. It's like there's a perspective of sometimes missing the point. I mean, Optimus doesn't necessarily need to be playing basketball all the time,
right?
But there is a certain degree of levity to break up the tension. I mean, that's just good storytelling.
Yeah. You need to be able to laugh with your characters. It's not just about the moments of darkness. I think that people often forget that even Transformers the movie, which upped the darkness to 11, like Sludge had his eyes pop out.
Yep.
There was a character called Wheelie who spoke in rhyme. The creators dumbed down the Dinobots significantly so they could create those moments like, why boy hit my nose? Like that didn't exist in a volume, just like Ironhide being heroic nonsense. That didn't exist in the volume either. And what I was hoping to create with both Descent into Chaos and Song of Jupiter is, I'd say more in Descent into Chaos, there is definitely more moments of levity, like that mixture of humor and violence. With Song of Jupiter, at least the first part, it was more like sort of like these micro moments, like when I think about Slash, for example, and sort of her like, I'm gonna take everything on, or when they're sort of ethering Prowl in the about him being a cop, or judging Hot Rod's dating choices. Like, you have to include a bit of that, right? And there's this bar scene in book 2 where we see we're focused a little bit more on the Decepticons, and they're definitely having fun. I mean, there's one character in particular, and I actually was like talking to Ant and a few other friends, like, about what would it be like to like have a new Mayhem Attack Squad, right? And let's put some characters in, both old and new, who can just like riff off each other. And what ended up drafting was like just thinking about, like, when I think about the whole like Target Master, Headmaster, Power Master thing, and you have these organics inside these cybernetic bodies, what happens if a character forgot that their weapons happen to have humans inside them?
Right.
And what would happen if you just didn't feed your gun for a while, and then the characters around you realize something smells, and I don't know. There's just like moments like that I think are just fun to do, and you kind of have permission to do so through fan fiction, that you don't have to worry as much about the powers that be saying, "Oh, I don't know if that's appropriate or not." So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. The other thing I do want to call out is thinking about like some of the more serious themes. There was this piece around, Tarn. Since I already mentioned him, I could just bring him up again.
Yeah.
For like my characterization of Tarn as like a true freedom fighter, and in many ways an author, right? As a fan of James Baldwin, I was thinking a lot about some of the writings and some of the talks that Baldwin gave, and there was a part of me that's like, what if there was a Transformer that had all the characteristics and the motivations that helped influence Baldwin's writing. Gosh, I'm trying to think of like a couple of quotes that I actually wrote in the script to inform Tarn. I think one was, the most dangerous creation of any society is the man that has nothing to lose. And then the second one was, not everything that can be faced. No, not everything that is faced can be changed. But nothing can be changed unless it is faced. And you look at Tarn's face, and not to make it like too like obvious, like his face is a Decepticon symbol, right? But what if you had Decepticons who truly felt like they were freedom fighters in this world where the Autobots have total power over the universe?
Yeah.
And then when I'm thinking about Tarn as a James Baldwin, archetype of character, and then you run into Jazz, who oftentimes fans saw as the black guy, as opposed to a character who is smooth and loves music, and so happens to be, Optimus's right-hand man. What happens if he started having a crisis of faith? And what happens if someone who might be of a similar identity, at least when it comes to personality type, is faced with somebody who like looks at you as someone who is siding with the oppressors, even if they come from similar backgrounds? So, I think that the world of the Transformers lends itself to being able to share a piece of yourself as an artist or as a writer or as whatever you are, and be able to play with some character dynamics in a way that other franchises you might not be able to do so.
Yeah. That's the amazing thing, one, about Transformers as a concept, as a franchise, but also science fiction in general.
Yeah.
You can use science fiction to create a fantastical allegory. It's like, oh, well, he's white on the left side. Can't you see? Are you blind? You can have those sometimes subtle and not so subtle analogies and allegories. But with Transformers, you can take it that much further because they're shape-changing ancient robots.
Yeah.
So you can have conversations about diversity and gender and race and class and all of those different dynamics that you might not be able to get away with in kind of traditional mainstream fiction.
Right.
Like Transformers is at its best when it's a science fiction concept.
Absolutely. I look at what James Roberts did, and gosh, like that man did so much for folks of diverse genders, or those who are non-binary, and gave it a Transformers face and name to it, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And were I ever able to have the privilege of, doing the same thing officially, I would love that. But until that day, I'll just add my own spin to it with whatever fan comics I happen to have the privilege to create with some really great folks.
Absolutely. Well, terrific stuff. Well, Hooks, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
It was great getting to meet with you. It was great chatting with you. I sincerely hope this is not the last time that we have the opportunity to do a show together.
I'm
It's
sure it
it's
won't be. I'm sure it
certainly certainly a long time coming. Like Ant messaged me. He's like, about time. You know,
awesome. Thank
because
you.
yeah,
Thank you for inviting me to the show. Thank you for this conversation, and just looking forward to more. I'm very excited if we're just talking about official stuff. Rise of the Beast this summer is coming, so maybe we could have a conversation with a few folks around that. Hoping it's good. Earthspark is obviously coming back in March, and there's still this question mark about publisher, and so
Right.
let's see what happens, right? Let's see, and if we have the opportunity to continue creating these fan comics that people are enjoying, then I'm more than happy to continue to create until my bank account is dry, I guess. But yeah, no, this is great, Mike, and I really appreciate the conversation. It was phenomenal.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and you're welcome. Two quick things before we get ready to sign off. I missed this in chat like an hour or so ago. My buddy Nick asks, does James own any of the Transformers action figures, third party figures? Question mark. What's in Hooks's collection?
Oh my God! So I can't show you right now, but I have like at least 1,000 Transformers.
Okay.
I will say I am mostly opposed to third-party figures, primarily because there's some moral thing that just feels kind of weird about purchasing third-party, with one exception. So Beast Wars Megatron is my favorite character in the franchise, and it has been the biggest regret that there has not been a single official Transmetal Megatron figure ever produced. And so when I saw that there was this, I don't remember the name of the third party company.
Sure.
It was, gosh, let me see. What was it?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't help you. I'm not. My judo is weak with regards to 3P.
Yeah, Transart.
Okay.
So I saw this Transart, basically a masterpiece version of Transmetal Megatron that was like ripped from the screen. I'm like, screw morals, screw whatever like feelings of obligation I have to, the legalities of IP theft. I'm gonna have that baby, and that baby is in my collection. And it's like until there's an official masterpiece Megatron, masterpiece Transmetal Megatron. That will continue to be the centerpiece of my collection. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Do you so you write fan fiction yourself? Are there any other projects that you're interested in that you're just like a fan of or follow?
Gosh, I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I'm getting to the age of like I consume content and there's so much content out there, and I hate calling shows and books and movies content, but I feel like that's what we call everything these days. I am I'm a comic fan. Saga is like a book that I've been reading for years, that I just, every time there's a new issue, I immediately read it. That's something I'll always follow. I'm a fan of Jonathan Hickman's work, and I subscribe to his Substack.
Nice.
Like Marvel's done phenomenal work on screen. So, next weekend, the new Ant-Man movie will come out, and I'm hoping that we start seeing a little bit more creativity with stuff that the MCU is producing. So I feel like the last phase, while it wasn't bad, it just felt in some ways by the numbers.
Yeah.
What else? There's so many good shows out, like Severance, Succession.
Mm-hmm.
Last of Us is phenomenal. Star Trek, Strange New Worlds was great. I'm an old school Star Trek fan, but I kind of lapsed for a number of years. And then when Strange New Worlds came out and I heard great feedback, I decided to watch it. I'm like, I'm a Trekker again. So
yeah. I literally changed my hairstyle to be more Anson Mount. I mean, it's like I've been working all day, so it's kind of decreased a little bit, but it's like I went full floof there for a while there. It's like, what a terrific ensemble. And again, it gets back to what Star Trek is supposed to be. All that stuff we were talking about earlier about, organic diversity and inclusion and allegory and just like, oh my God, it's terrific. It absolutely is. It's, we talked earlier a little bit about like, kind of like gatekeeping fans and stuff. It's like, oh man, here's where Star Trek went woke. And it's like, the fuck are you talking about? Where were you in 1966?
So in the world, right? Like,
yes.
Like, come on. Like just, I don't know. Like,
so dumb.
I try not to get involved in any of this, like, new, like, very, like, the thing is, political debates used to actually have some substance, and I felt like if you could have a disagreement, it was about things like, I don't know, like taxes and capital gains and like whatever. But now it's this, quite frankly, pretty stupid argument over semantics and things that were, quite frankly, settled in the social sphere decades ago that now people are starting to bring up because they're looking to be as edgy as possible. And I'm sorry, but people who are of the same gender or of different races who happen to fall in love, that's not going woke. That's just two humans who happen to enjoy each other's company, and that is the most human thing that we can enjoy and appreciate. And if you don't believe that people should belong or should be a part of whatever tribe that they choose to be, then you're not someone that I want to associate myself with.
100%. Yeah, it's it's enjoy things. You know what I mean? It is that overarching philosophy of don't be a gatekeeper in all phases of life, and just let people be and let people enjoy things.
Absolutely.
So
go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I was just gonna say the last question that I ask every guest that I have on the show, specifically on their first time, is I talk to a number of different creators, musicians, podcasters, comic artists, you name it, and I always ask folks what advice they would have for people looking to pursue their own creative interests. So like if somebody like has an interest in doing like a Transformers fan comic, what I mean, you don't have to answer specifically to that, but just advice for the kiddos as we close out here.
So I'll just share a bit of advice, taking from a page of Cup. When I was younger, in one of my first roles as a people manager. So like I work in tech, and, I am someone who, focuses really on helping to build leaders, support folks in their careers, helping to get them unstuck from whatever it is that is challenging them. And I remember being a fairly junior manager in my career who, I got the feedback that no one wants to follow a robot. And we're not talking about Transformers. We're talking about someone who is so masked, so worried about what their appearance is, that they are not authentic and they're not true. And, you and I talked about this before the show around this notion of, there's no one else that can be us but us. So why hide the true you? Why not be fully authentic and lean into the things that you love and that you enjoy and that you just get so much energy from? And, the one thing I've never hid was my love of Transformers. I am someone who loves deeply and sort of like wears my heart on my sleeve. But also there was like a moment in my career and in my life where I felt like I had to be two different people. I had to be somebody at the office and somebody different with my friends. But we are not separate people, right? We are human beings that, with full emotions and full, feelings that we are meant to really lean into. And so if there's something that you enjoy doing, if there's like you want to learn how to play a guitar, or you have been holding back your voice from singing because you are worried about how others may perceive that, or you had this idea for a crazy Transformer story, and you allow yourself to partner with some incredible people to produce it, put it out there, because you never know who's going to become a fan of yours, and become somebody who appreciates you giving voice to those who may not have the privilege of being able to be voiced, and have their voices heard. And so I would just say that you don't want to live, in the future feeling regret for things you weren't able to produce in the past.
I love it. Brilliant wisdom. Thank you so much. I really enjoy chatting with you. I mean, I really dig the depth of wisdom. The project is Transformers Descent into Chaos and Transformers Songs of Jupiter. Both of those comics are available for free for download and viewing on the website tilltheday.com. We have been chatting with the author and mastermind behind the project, James Hooks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and thank you for exploring the madness together.
As our descent into madness.
The songs of madness.
There it is. Oh, there it is. There it is. There's the mashup.
Yep.
Now, if folks wanted to find you on the internet and connect with you out on social medias, how would folks do so?
Yeah, I would say Twitter is the best one. The thing I barely use anymore because of the craziness. So HOOOKS on Twitter. And if you want to follow my career, I guess, LinkedIn, HXPhD, but like we're going to do like post something about Simon Sinek or Brene Brown, and here's a YouTube channel, and here's something inspirational, or whatever. So outside of that, no, that's me. And outside of that, just I guess stick to tilltheday.com and look for more from us.
Perfect. All right. Well, we will leave it there for now. That will wrap things up for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and watching and hanging out with us. If you want to listen to my podcast, Mike Seibert Radio, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, wherever the hell else you listen to your podcasts. Like, share, rate, and review the show. Let us know what you'd like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. And subscribe so you never miss an episode. For my guest, the one and only Hooks, my name is Mike. This has been Mike Seibert Radio. And until next time, tell all are one.
Till all are one.
Till all are one. Make good choices.
Yes.
All right, now let's end the broadcast.
That was great. That went way